You'd never guess these start as plain plastic ice cream buckets. Well, then again, maybe you would. In this one, I'm turning throwaway containers into decorated planters, rope handles, spray paint, the works. Then I'm filling them with Dahlias and Zinnias, and finally, I'm going to be getting my potting bench organized in the process. Let's go garden. So I am painting these ice cream buckets. Maybe if you've seen my prior videos, you have seen I've talked about it a little bit. I thought I would share a little bit of my process here. I am and my process is changing over the time because I'm still trying to figure out how to do it in a way that the buckets retain the paint, they don't chip as much. I've tried different things. Of course, searched online, used AI to try to research the best ways to do it. These ice cream buckets are particularly stubborn in terms of keeping the paint. I use primer, I sand, several coats. I do a clear finishing coat. I do all the things, and it still be a challenge. But what I found that I like the most so far is I like just hand brushing with just like a regular brush. I tried rollers, I do the spray paint, and I still do some spray paint. It may take a little longer, but maybe I just like maybe it's meditative to me. The other thing that I found that I'm liking is I like using like a really cheap base paint, the bucket. So if I'm gonna do something that is relatively darker like this blue, I'll just do a base paint of black, the spray paint black, a really cheap one, that really cheap can, and that's basically obscures the writing and things that would otherwise be on the ice cream bucket. And then I paint over it, and this is only one coat. And if I really wanted to get this blue correct in there, then I would do multiple coats. But honestly, I kind of like the look of the blue kind of brushed over the black, and that the black kind of comes through in some where the brush strokes are not wheat or fully cover the black. I kind of like that look there. So I'm going to move on to another step I wanted to try with this one, which is to some texture. So I do use a spray paint for the texture, and I'm going to try different textures over time, but currently what I've been liking is some called a concrete finish. Been liking how it looks on some of the buckets. This will be the first time I tried on like a blue one like this, so we'll see what it looks like. Not really applying the texture to the top rim here. I don't think I really need to. I'm really focusing the texture on kind of here, leaving kind of the bottom and the top. This texture is a kind of a white, has a white to it, so it's going to lighten up the bucket. So what will happen is by putting the concrete texture on here, it'll lighten up this section, and it'll keep the top and bottom rims a little darker. And I read somewhere that distance, that kind of makes the bucket look a little more natural. So that's another reason that I'm doing it that way. We'll see how it goes. This is just something I do for fun, since we've got all these. Okay, let me apply this. I think my nozzle got up. Well, that's frustrating because I can feel there's still stuff in there, but I can't get it now. As spray paints go, this is relatively expensive. Okay, well, never mind, plans change, right? So I'll figure out what to do with that later. But at this point, my question then is, should I leave this with the black, or should I do another coat to make it more of this blue? This is called that English Channel blue, and I'm also using an eggshell texture, just avoid shiny textures and want it to make look more natural out in the garden. I think I'm going to treat this as ready to go. Not as ready to go, then really ready to go, because the next thing I actually want to do is apply a clear finish. One of the things I'd like to move away from spray paints altogether, because it just creates fumes, and I should be wearing a mask, and I don't want to, and to stand back a little bit from it. But I find kind of a clear finish do with paintbrush, but I haven't really found one that would be properly designed for buckets like this. You know, the clear finishes, of course you have like deck finishes and other kinds of clear finishes that purposes that go on with a brush, but found that is for kind of that is for painted plastic is the spray kind. I'll keep looking at that. Like I said, I want to get away from using the spray cans. I usually do 2 coats of this, so I'll do this 1 coat now, I'll set the bucket aside, and later today I'll do a 2nd coat, and then this bucket will be ready to go out into the garden. I also, these holes in the side are so that I can attach kind of a rope hand to it. Practical and also for looks. I have the rope available right now. I just had to order some more on Amazon. I use a hemp or a jute rope for that, and I ran out the other day, so I need to get some more coming from Amazon on that. Okay. Now this one is a gray bucket. Now this, or silver, I've been using some leftover silver spray paint I had. I did do the black first on this to give it a first coat and to darken out the right. And then I did, I believe I did 2 coats of the silver. And you know, these are going out in the garden, so they don't have to be perfect. They're gonna have scratches and stuff on them anyway. So really the goal is just to get something that I love, can not easily as it has, or the paint come off as easily as it has. Really where I have the problem is on the edges, both on the top. So I've tried to do a little more sanding on those parts, but again, I don't think I've totally solved it. So don't hold me to it. Don't be surprised when later in the garden you see these buckets out there with chipped paint, and or next later video I'm repainting them. I did a lot of that this year, is repainting some of last year's buckets. But anyway, this one hasn't clear coat on it yet, so I'm going to do 2 rounds of clear coat on this, just like the other one we just saw. So there, and then definitely not a pro at doing this, so if you see something you think I should be doing better here, give me a shout out in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So this bucket is an example. I'm trying to use up my silver spray paint where you can see kind of the black coming through. So I did the black to start out with as the base coat. Again, cheap paint. And then I did the silver over the top of that, and you can see how the black's coming through. And yeah, I kind of like the look of that. So I kind of debated, well, should I just leave that as is? It's kind of interesting to have kind of that blotchy kind of black coming through a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and use up what I'll do is I'll use up my silver paint, because I don't have that much of it left anyway. So I'll just use it until I don't, because I've got 2 of these here. Just trying to see which one would be better left. I think of the 2, this one might actually be better left without a 2nd coat if I had to, which I might, because I might run out. So maybe I'll take this one and I'll do the 2nd coat on this one. This one's almost nearly out here. And so putting a 2nd coat on here, I would always do it in coats no matter what, but part of what I'm trying to achieve here is to lessen the amount of the black base paint coming through, make it more of just a plain silver. Okay. Still a little bit in there, but I think that will be better left. What I'll do is I'll leave that for this one here. Do some touch-ups to see kind of how this, and there'll probably be a few places where there's still some black coming through. So once that dries, I'll go do some more touch-up on that, and then this will be ready for a clear coat after that. Which then means I am basically relegating this one to this look of silver with some black coming through. I think that's good. I like it. That, or another experiment I was thinking was I could apply the blue and see, earlier you saw kind of the blue with the black coming through. It'd be interesting if I apply the blue, if I could then see the silver kind of coming through. That might give us an interesting effect. Actually, I really like that idea. Let me see if I can do that by just really applying this super light. let's do that. I'll use this. I'm cheap with these brushes. I just keep reusing them because I'm just painting buckets here. It doesn't really need to be super pro. Now you'll see kind of where my process is pretty slow and amateur because I am got this on a Lazy Susan here, and then underneath I've got these little cardboard things that came in some outdoor pots that I use to stand it on. That way I'm getting all the way to the bottom, and then I just leave this at rocks or it'll fall over. So then I take this and I push down there, and then that gives me more of a solid. There's another thing. I need to design a more professional jig, I think. Put a light coat on without looking like you're just trying to put a light coat on. How do you underpaint with making it look like you're intentionally underpainting? I think probably, if I think about that harder, the better way to do this would be to dilute the paint, right? To put some of this in a cup and maybe put a little bit of water in it so that the paint itself was thinner to begin with. That might be the better way to do it, but I'm sure professional painters are rolling over laughing at me right now. So I didn't do any research or watch any YouTube videos on how to paint buckets before I started this. Okay, looking good. Wow. Decide if it's looking good later after this dries, and we kind of see what how the whole thing comes together. When I'm really trying to paint it a solid, getting this kind of edge here can be a little more challenging. The spray paint makes it easy. When you spray, I can easily get that kind of edge fully covered, but when I'm brushing, getting that edge fully covered can be a little bit challenging. The non-professional shortcut method is I just apply a lot of paint there and fill in quickly. Okay, I think this is kind of getting the effect I was wanting to experiment with. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. It may be that I want the bottoms and tops to be more solid and just the middle to be the kind of streaked look, but okay. That's it for bucket painting for now. I'll probably get back into it later today after these dry a bit. Do some more coats. I'm going to go rinse this out so I can reuse it. And well, this morning I'm back out here working on the buckets, and my Amazon order of the rope that I use for the handle came in. So that's what I'm working on here for a second. I just tie a knot and let that hold the rope in place. So it's pretty simple. And then I just eyeball the length, usually kind of have a sense of how far around it's got to go to get what I want. But if you look at all my buckets, they're all slightly different lengths, the rope handle anyway, so it's not a precise thing. Okay. Just cut it with a regular pair of scissors, really. Now, if this rope gets buried in the soil of the bucket and wet a lot, it does fray or come undone. I've had that happen a couple of times. I tried using more of a nylon rope, but I didn't like the look, so I really haven't found a solution for using the style of rope that I like for this, while keeping it super strong. But in any case, there you go. These work as neat little planters for me. This is another one that was done previously. I've got some soil in it already that I didn't get a handle on yet, so now I will do that. Okay, there we go. There's that one. Now, unfortunately, I've gotten my rope all tangled up, but I'm gonna move it over here out of the way. And working on these over here, I think I've almost exhausted my silver paint there, but I'm just taking a look at, do I think this is good enough? Do I think there's any spots that I might want to touch up before? Yeah, I think this is good enough here. So I'm gonna say this one is ready for some finishing coat. I did bring a mask today. Not sure, although this mask it's a K95, but it's not a full-on respirator thing, so it probably has limited value here, but always pretend I'm doing something. Okay, this is the other silver bucket. Same thing. Taking a look, I think we pretty much got the good coverage. I'm not seeing anything I want to do different there or more of, so I'll go ahead and put finishing coat on that. And I'm running out here. That's done for. So I'll whip out another new bottle. New can, that is. Okay. Oh, I'm trying to remember where I left off on this one. I think on this one, I started with some silver paint, then I did a light layer of brushed on channel blue paint, and then I didn't really like exactly how that was looking, so I did another kind of silver paint spray on it, and I kind of like how this is looking now. I've got a little bit more of spray, so maybe what I'll do is a little bit more with the idea that I'm just kind of letting the blue kind of come through, so that it's actually more of a silver with blue coming through kind of thing. And then that'll, oh, you know what? My silver paint's out, so I'm gonna let it be as that. That'll be that. Try to toss both of those so I don't forget. So let me go ahead and do the finishing. I'll do the finishing paint on this one. Okay. So to recap, I had these two silver buckets. They are, the silver coverage on the buckets are where I want them. I have used the clear coat on them, one round of clear coat on them, one layer, or yeah, forget what you call that. And then I have this bucket here where I had started with the channel blue. Well, actually, I'd started with the silver on it, and then I'd done the channel blue to see if silver would come through the channel blue, and that didn't work exactly the way I wanted, so then I sprayed more silver on it, and so now it looks more like the blue is coming through the silver, and I like how that's ended up. And so now I'm gonna put on the coat. I'm gonna put on a coat of the clear coat. And then that will leave me with 3 buckets that have had 1 round of clear coat on them. And then when they dry later today, I will put a second round, and then these buckets will be ready to go. Well, then I'll have to put the rope, the rope handles on them, and then they will be ready to go. So let me finish that up. Okay. That is that task for now. I'll see you in the next segment. You guys in a little bit. The bucket workshop. Well, I'm back here at the bucket workshop, and I am working on a new ice cream bucket here, creating a new ice cream bucket. I've got several of the buckets that we finished yesterday, including 2 coats of the clear coat. So those need some rope handles for them, and then they're ready to go for planting up some flowers. So this, you kind of get to see some of the process from beginning to end that I'm going through, and I'm not claiming I know how to do this. I think if you've seen segments, I've said I've struggled with chipping on these buckets, both usually around the rim and sometimes around this part. So I've tried different things overall. One of the things is, you know, if I sand these too aggressively or scuff them up too aggressively, then it doesn't look as nice. You don't get a kind of a flat texture to it as much as I want, which sometimes is okay. Sometimes I want to, you know, I might be experimenting with getting a very rough texture, and that's what I'm intending to do. Kind of general purpose, the way I'm doing this is I first wash the bucket. So I wash it with soap and water. I try to get as much of the ice cream residues and everything out of it and off of it. Then I peel, there's labels on here. There's usually like a big label stuck on there, and that can be difficult to get off and without leaving lots of residue. And so what I do is a heat gun actually to heat up the label to then more easily peel that off. I've done all this before this video here, so you're not seeing me do that, but I'll peel that label off using a heat gun, and then I'll kind of a 220 sanding block to just kind of rough it up a bit, and especially around the edges and stuff there. And then I will up it down with kind of rubbing alcohol to try to give it another clean, to make it more clean. Now we're on to the next process. Oh, I forgot. Before I do any of that, the very first thing I do is I drill the holes in the bottom in there. And I do that first because the drilling leaves this dust and, you know, plastic pieces and everything all over the place, all over it. So because I'm gonna be washing it and then sanding it and then it with alcohol as well, I do the drilling first so that those next steps will clean up the plastic residues and plastic dust off the bucket. There's a technical name for this kind of which I've forgotten, but it's I actually ran into somebody who deals with this professionally in various kinds of packaging, and they knew all about it, and they explained kind of why it was actually so difficult to work with in terms of the painting. So the next process that I do is I put on a primer, and I have a paint-on primer try as well, but I'm using this Rust-Oleum plastic primer. It needs a special kind of primer given the kind of material it is. The only thing I found that might do the trick, but as I've said, I'm not 100% sure I'm really getting the done way. And this has fumes to it similar to the paint, of course, so I'll try my trusty mask to see if I can provide a base, just a little bit of protection there. Okay, so one coat, I'll usually do 2 coats of the primer, so I'll let that dry. Later today I'll put a second coat on that, and then once I've done that, then I'll put some kind of base paint down. So I get really cheap, the cheap spray paint, like from Home Depot. I'll get like a really cheap white and a really cheap black, and then it depends on what my final color is going to be. So for example, I have that I like that I might do today is kind of a powdery black look of that one. But before I use the nice powdery black, which is the more expensive spray paint, I will use the cheap black spray paint kind of initial coating, and that will be to cover up the labeling as well as you know, give it a basic coat before I put the more expensive stuff on, since the more expensive plan is kind of a more fine version or a nicer version of a black base coat that's really cheap. It's an effective way to do this. I mean, honestly, we're recycling ice cream buckets, right? Like, part of it is it's great to have a reason not to just throw them away, but also part of it is I don't want the total cost of creating an ice cream bucket to be as much or more than the cost of buying a nice new planter of the same size, right? Try to make this whole project so that the average cost of each bucket is at least a little bit less. That would make the whole effort feel a little more worthwhile as well. Okay, so I'm gonna put these over here to dry, put this one over here to dry, and then next I'll ropes to these other ones here. All right, so this part of my bucket workshop, we are adding the rope. And the last couple I did, I felt like the rope handle came off a little too long, which it's better for it to be a little bit too long than too short, because I can fix too long. But I think that, yeah, I'm gonna cut this one a little shorter than I've cut the others, and I let my rope get all tangled up there, so it looks kind of silly what I'm doing there. Okay, so I'm gonna just do what you've seen me do before. I'm gonna get my knot in there. My scissors, cut some of that off so it's not so evasive. And then I was basically I came up with this measurement of going once around the whole bucket, as that's the that I want, but that has been too long, so I'm gonna cut that off. I'm gonna go 3/4 around the bucket and see if I like that length better for now. How much I use for tying the knot, but I try to keep the knot as close to the end as I can so I'm not wasting rope. Okay, there we go. And yeah, I like that length a little bit better than where it has been. So there we go. Got one there. Next, silver bucket. I was trying to use up my silver paint. Which is why everything had the silver theme to it. Take that 1/4 around. Go. Okay, there we go. Interesting that somehow I eyeballed that differently, because that came out shorter than the other one, but that's what I mentioned before. They're not uniform. I'm not doing it exactly, but that's fine enough. Okay. The last one for this morning. Rope handle size. Okay, so this would be half. This would be 3/4. That would be the full thing. So let me go there. That's coming out a little more like I expected. Okay, I've got buckets. I actually had one that I put up at the potting bench yesterday evening, so 3 plus that, so I've got 4 more buckets. So you know what our next segment, or soon to come segment, is going to be: planting flowers in these buckets. I'll see you when we get there. Well, I came over here to plant up these ice cream buckets and realized that I had a lot of deferred work here in terms of getting this potting bench a bit organized here. I was using these trays here to give away things to friends, and these trays in particular were really, really rough, so I decided I'm going to throw these ones out here. When I built this potting bench, and basically underneath here is just a retaining wall, and then just the hillside coming from that side, and then a layer of gravel, maybe about that thick there, and then I've been using it as a shelf, so I've just been parking boxes and crates of various supplies under there, and I've been concerned that maybe this would become a habitat for small animals or something. Far, and I think almost months with this in place, and that hasn't happened, but I've gone through kind of the fall and the full winter yet, so maybe when it gets colder and they're looking for places to hide, it might. So I'm on the lookout for that, hoping it won't happen, because this is super convenient, and of course I can do more work to make it so that it's not as likely or an issue, but I'm trying to figure out the minimum amount that I absolutely have to do. And so far, I didn't have to go an extra step, so I'm gonna stick with that and try avoiding it if I can. Okay. I'll stack the various containers and pots here first to decide what there. Lots of tags. These are all outdoor trays. I call these outdoor trays because they've got the mesh holes in the bottom, and so it allows me to keep groupings of pots together and carry them around more efficiently around the outdoors. Holes in the bottom are helpful because if they're outside and I'm watering with the hose, that way they're not collecting lots of water underneath and getting waterlogged. And also in the spring and the fall when I have these outside, just the rain is a lot of water in there, and so I've seen that before where they can get water. My plants can get waterlogged if they're in trays that don't have this kind of drainage. On the flip side, if I'm using trays inside the garage for seed starting, then I typically don't want them to have holes in it because I don't want the water. I want to kind of keep the water in the bottom tray as a reservoir for watering the plant. And I also don't want the water dripping through the shelves, dripping through the tray, through the shelves to the lighting system of the next layer down that I've got more seedlings on, right? So it's a different thing when it's in the garage. I'm just being silly by trying to cram all these trays into one column here, but all right, I gave up on that. Got more trays than I've got room there. Oh, I'm leaving room right there. Got room. Let's put it right there. Okay. Empty out into my, you can't see it from there, but I got a tub over here for extra recycling the potting soil, so I just empty out containers, old containers that have some potting soil in them in there, and I recover a lot of potting soil that way. I've been finding. These plastic trays I keep for years. I don't imagine I'd be buying more of these for a very long time because I also have so much more than I actually use in any one season now, because the scale of my gardening here in the driveway garden is much less than it was in my larger garden. So I just don't use as many of these trays in a season. I still have tons of them down there that I never touched during It's actually kind of remarkable when I think about it that I actually used all of those trays at the other garden. The scale of what I was doing, it's hard to even imagine now, years later in a different location. There's a part of me that just kind of likes organizing. I think that's part of what I like garden, is organizing an outdoor space into the garden. I think it's that organization and categorizing of things it's just something that kind of I find appealing, or well, I've got my decorated ice cream buckets here, and I am gonna plant a couple things. I have a dahlia here that I want to plant, and then I have some 4 o'clocks that I want to go ahead and plant. I might do 2 here and then 2 in another. I planted them in another pot that's already out in the garden, that these 4 o'clocks can get reasonably big in and of themselves, and so I don't want to overcrowd them too much here. It's a relative statement. It's not like I'm admitting to not overcrowding at all. I'm definitely going to do some overcrowding, but not too much. Some overcrowding, but not too much. Okay, so let's start with the dahlia. Just going to give myself a little bit of a hole. This is going to need a lot of water because it's fairly dry potting soil. And when I do this with the others, I want to just finish this off now, but when I do the others, I'm thinking now that I'll probably re-water, do a little more watering of the pot before I start the planting. Okay. And I'm intentionally leaving the soil level about here because of where my cream bucket rope knots are here. If the rope knot gets buried, then it's more likely to spot and snap off. I've had happen a couple of times. Not the end of the world. I mean, it's really more decorative than truly functional. I have some pots like this that I've converted to being functional, and there I've used stronger knots, and I don't carry soil in them. I don't leave soil sitting in them. I use them as buckets to carry things around. Like you might see me when I'm doing the retaining wall, I'll use these buckets with this. I might not have even painted them. I've drilled the holes and put the rope in for a handle, and I'll use them to cart gravel back and forth. Anyway, these go on and on about how cool these ice cream buckets are. They're just so versatile in my garden, and I'm using them in so many different ways like this. Okay, I want to put a little bit of fertilizer in there, and I'm going to use Osmocote for this. That's an inorganic fertilizer. There's already a certain amount of fertilizer that has been mixed into the soil because the soil was recycled from pots that I had set up this year that things didn't come to fruition, but the fertilizer was still in there. So there's already a certain amount of fertility in there already. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put my 4 o'clocks in there. Maybe I'll start with this one to see if I can split it easily. Yeah, there we go. That's split nicely. Okay. Okay. All right, I think that's it. A couple of 4 o'clocks. The Dahlia, let me throw some water in there. My hose is sitting back here. Sharing my hose with my 3-year-old lately because it's been pretty hot, and in the afternoon she gets out here with what's called a water table, and she just loves that thing. It's like a table that has a tub on it and little bath toys and stuff you put in it, and you just play in the water, and you can have it recycle the water and water fall on you and stuff like that. And that's an interesting, it's one of those things, one of those products or things in life that I wouldn't even know existed if it wasn't for having a 3-year-old. It's like I wasn't familiar at all with the concept of a water table. I don't know. It's draining out the bottom there. That doesn't mean that I've really gotten the soil fully saturated. It's a pretty well draining potting mix I've got going in there, so it can kind of drain out and not fully saturate the rest of the soil. That both things are possible, but digging it all up, I'm not going to know for sure. So I think I'm gonna call that good. I'm going to assume it's good, and break here, and then go in the garden to set this in the sun, and then and we've got a couple more to do. Okay, I'm back at it. I still have a couple of 4 o'clocks to plant up here with another dahlia. My priority right now in terms of flower planting is to get all my dahlias in. I'm a little bit late on that. They would be bigger right now if they had been planted already, and they would be farther along towards producing flowers. So let me grab another dahlia bulb. As many dahlia bulbs as I did have sprout, I have probably at least half that didn't sprout, and I don't know why. I mean, I know when I was organizing my dahlia bulbs, there were some that looked a little bit weaker, but not half. I think maybe because I left them out here during the winter, they were just kind of wrapped up and stored under the potting bench. I mean, they might have suffered a real freeze at some point, and maybe that's the issue. I really don't know. I have a lot of experience with storing and then revitalizing dahlia bulbs. This was my first year of revitalizing them after I had tried storing them before and just never got around to replanting them before. So it's definitely something I want to learn more about. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna put this dahlia bulb right in there. I did learn from the last round and pre-watered the pot, so hopefully we'll get a good amount of yeah, and it does look reasonably moist in there. What I did learn from last time was I didn't learn that remember that I also need to fertilize first, or should fertilize first. So more Osmocote in there. Mix that up a little bit, and then okay. Push that up on the sides there. Drop my dahlia bulb in there. Okay. Now let me get my 4 o'clocks in there. I'm just putting a little more potting soil in here. I feel like it doesn't have quite enough. Okay. Give it a little bit of water, more water. It was the soil was moistened before I put this in here, but I want to water the actual plants in there. And there we go. Ready to go throw this out in the sun. Okay, we've got another bucket, another dahlia. More dahlias than buckets, so we can call it now that every bucket you see me plant here today is going to have dahlias in it. For what that's worth. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to putting some with the 4 o'clocks, so I'm gonna put some zinnias in here. It's zinnia time. Yeah. Okay. Put that one there. Got a twofer. Oh, that one's actually not gonna survive. So let's throw this one in there. I pre-moistened, pre-fertilized this bucket. So it's ready to go. I'm gonna try to squeeze four of these in here just because I've still got lots of flowers to plant, so I'll get everything I have as planted as I can. So you've seen me do this exact combo several times in prior videos, and dahlia and surrounded by several zinnias. The pockets that I've done it in, or the pots that I've done it in, are not flowering yet, but the are growing nicely. So confidence based on what I've seen there that they will flower, no problem. Okay. Another bucket down. Let me get that into the sun and we'll come back and we've got one more. Well, I got excited and I planted this dahlia in here without you. Sorry, but still have the zinnias to plant, so we can do that part together. So yeah, let me get I moistened the soil, I fertilized, and I planted the dahlia. Now I just need to pop in these zinnias. That'll be all there is to this. Okay, this one is done and ready for some sun.